In the 2020s, there's been no shortage of off-road worthy SUVs from Ford. We have the Bronco, Bronco Sport. We also have the F-150 Raptor and Ranger Raptor to go along with the Expedition Tremor. And for 2026, we have yet another addition to this lineup, the 2026 Ford Explorer Tremor, a vehicle that promises to be flexible, more off-road worthy and capable than ever, and also possibly a better choice over their rivals from Jeep. In today's video, we're going to check out what this new 2026 Ford Explorer Tremor has to offer us. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, for the first time since probably the 1990s, Ford may have nailed it with the Explorer, making it the ultimate adventure vehicle coming in below $60,000. Now, before I dive into this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Acton Ford in Acton, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Ford Explorer Tremor. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Ford inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2026 Ford Explorer Tremor, you have a starting cost of just below $50,000. We're starting off reasonable here and easing our way into the ultimate package, because our model does have the ultimate package, giving us a final cost of just over $63,000. Now, at $63,000, this will go head-to-head with the Honda Pilot Trail Sport, maybe even the Hyundai Palisade XRT, as we're seeing a lot of manufacturers move in the rugged direction. When it comes to pricing, though, right now, heading into the summer, Ford is offering employee pricing, which will save you about $5,000, getting you below the $60,000 threshold. Now, the ultimate package is something we're going to be talking about quite a bit when we check out what's under the hood and for the interior. I don't want to give too much away here, so let's dive right into the exterior appearance of this vehicle and what it will be offering you guys for 2026. The Tremor is all new, and it does replace the Timberline from a couple of years ago. The Timberline was a bit more understated. In fact, you may have seen a few of them on the road, but it never really drew your attention. This Explorer, on the other hand, is definitely adventurous for sure, and Ford is trying to be the Porsche of off-road SUVs. They're really trying to stick it to Jeep right now, and with the Explorer, that might get them there if they are trying to be the best off-road capable SUVs on the market right now. Up front, you are going to notice the orange accents, which kind of look like a mustard color. I'm just going to say orange because that's what we have on the marketing material. That makes its way into the grille, and then for the lower portion of the front bumper, we have the tow hook mounts as well. So yeah, that mustard color really drawing your attention. Now, you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED daytime running lights to go along with LED fog lights, and there is lighting in the grille. We have the covers on, which I have been told they can be removed and put back into place. Since it is a dealer vehicle, I'm not going to remove them here for this video, but it does give you some extra lighting. It gives you more of an aggressive appearance to this SUV. Up front, you also are going to have skid plates, and you're going to find that for the rear as well if you are going off-road and taking on the trail, so that way you're not damaging the undercarriage of your SUV. Returning to the grille, because I kind of glossed over this when we checked out the accents for the Tremor, this is not going to be painted for the grille. It's not going to have gloss black, not gloss gray. This is hard touch plastic, which should be able to deflect the road salt, debris, and maybe rocks if you are going off-road or taking on winter road conditions. Also, we do have the Explorer badge being written out on the hood here in gloss black, nice touch. And what we see from the top grille also extends to the lower grille as well. So a lot of continuity here to this model, and I have to say, even though a lot of manufacturers struggle with plastic cladding, it really does fit this vehicle quite well, and I think is a nice addition to the Tremor trim. Making our way over to the side profile, this is where we begin to see the mechanical components of this vehicle that makes it rugged and sets it apart from the ST, the Active, and the Platinum, and it all begins with the tire setup. So we are going to have 18-inch gloss black alloy wheels with the Tremor accents, and it is wrapped in all-terrain tires. Now, usually with all-terrain tires, this creates a bit more road noise and takes away the softness of the suspension, because we do have off-road tune suspension here with this vehicle. We're going to talk about that a lot during the test drive, because this is one of those SUVs that is still blurring the lines between being on-road capable and then having that off-road capability you guys are looking for if you do live in areas with dirt roads or taking on snow-covered roadways. Now, typical for a vehicle like this, you are going to have aggressive cladding for the wheel arches that makes its way over to the side profile, and there is a gloss black blade there giving you some definition to the side profile of this model. We also have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. And above, we are going to have the roof rails, so if you are going camping this summer, you'll be able to store everything up there and you can really enjoy your weekend getaway. And finally, making our way around to the back, here we're going to have your LED taillights, which come off the other trims in the lineup, your Explorer badge being written out on the liftgate for a trendy and modern appearance, and we have the Tremor badge if you guys didn't already see the orange accents up front. Now, as you make your way to the lower portion of the rear bumper, here we have aggressive cladding, but then also a huge difference, and I'm kind of giving away what is going to be under the hood, is that we don't have quad exhaust tips, even though this model does have the twin turbo V6. You're going to have the accents once again outlining the brushed aluminum look for the lower portion of the rear bumper, and then we also have our trailer hitch here, which this vehicle can tow up to 5,000 pounds. Further doubling down on what this vehicle can give you, what it can offer mechanically, you're going to notice that the ride height is a bit higher up compared to the ST, the Platinum, and the Active. You're looking at right around 9 inches of ground clearance, which, again, we're going to be talking about that a bit because it does change up the driving dynamics of this SUV. Then to go along with the off-road tuned suspension, you are going to receive the Torsen limited slip rear differential, which did come off of the Timberline. So similar features, similar capability, but this time around with a Tremor emblem, you have a bit more of an aggressive appearance and also, I think, a more special look and design to this SUV overall. But let me know in the comment section below what you think about the Tremor. Under the hood, this is where it gets good and where we see a departure from the Timberline trim the Tremor replaces. Because for 2026, you can go with the 2.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine or the 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 coming right out of the ST, producing 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, coming back to the pricing though, through the Ultimate package, this is where you pay the price because you're spending around $60,000 here for the Explorer Tremor with the V6, but I think it is totally worth it in this situation. Because if you're someone who wants to have some fun on the tarmac, but also is looking for an adventure vehicle, you got that right here. And then on the more affordable side, you can go with the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine for better fuel efficiency, and then of course have that off-road capability for the weekend. Now, speaking of efficiency, let's dive into that, because obviously with this being a V6 powered SUV, it's not going to be the most economical, but that's perfectly fine in this situation in my opinion. So in the city, you're looking at right around 17 miles per gallon, and on the highway, 22, for a combined average of 19. That would fall right in line with many SUVs in this segment. So if you are a bit more conscious on the fuel economy side, take a look at the Turbo 4. Making our way inside this 2026 Ford Explorer Tremor, you are greeted by power-adjustable, heated and ventilated ActiveX seats with suede inserts for both the driver and passenger. With the driver's side having 3-position memory for added convenience. It's also worth mentioning that with this Tremor that we have here today, the seats also have massaging seat functionality as well. We're definitely testing that out today in this video. With these seats, it sets a tone for this trim. And in some ways, it takes aspects from, say, a Ford Ranger Raptor with the accents and also the ST with the suede inserts. Because you're going to have this sporty vibe being behind the wheel of this SUV. That yes, it is going to be off-road worthy. You can take on the dirt roads, you can take on the elements. But with these seats, you're going to find yourself very composed. I find the comfort to be exceptional, especially considering what this SUV is offering. Usually when manufacturers go in this direction, you're sacrificing something, but these seats give you a sporty sensation almost like the ST. So if you like what the ST has been offering you, but you want something a bit more capable, the Tremor isn't going to be this vast departure from that sportier trim in the lineup. In front of you is going to be a very beefy leather-wrapped steering wheel with aggressive 10-2 and firm 9-3. It's also paddle shifters to rotate the gears yourself. You're also going to notice that on this steering wheel, we do have Blue Cruise. We have a 90-day trial. You can obviously go to like 7 years with Blue Cruise if you so desire. Also in front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster. We have taken a look at this technology a number of times in the lineup, and especially for the Explorer. I'm not going to bore you today with all the ins and outs of this digital gauge cluster, but you can customize it to your liking. You can go with more of a minimal layout. You can check out fuel economy statistics, tire pressure monitoring, off-road status. It is all right here. And then obviously, like every other Ford out there, with this digital gauge cluster, you're going to be able to see what drive mode you're in, and you have a terrain management system as well. So we have tow haul, sport, eco. I don't know why I would have eco with this vehicle. Normal, slippery, and then off-road. So right here, at least when you take a look at what it's offering, you'll have that capability, have that peace of mind. Also, when you do place it in off-road mode, your front-facing camera activates. So if you've got any rocks or debris in front of you, you'll be able to traverse those trails very easily. Speaking of the infotainment system, you are going to receive wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation, and for our model, the optional 14-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system to amplify the audio of your favorite music. Since Ford utilizes Android-based software, I'd argue that this infotainment system is very straightforward and easy to get used to and get acclimated with. At the bottom of the screen will be quick access icons for your dual zone climate control up front, your AC, front rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, your heated steering wheel, and heated and ventilated seats. On the left side of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, but then also your vehicle settings. And here you have ambient lighting, hill descent control, your seats because they're multi-contoured, also massaging, your exterior lighting, which unfortunately we really can't showcase today with the covers on the grille, your brightness, valet mode, vehicle status, etc. With the seats, we got to test out the massaging seat functionality. I gotta be honest here, I'm not a huge fan of these massaging seats at all, because for one, they make a vibrating noise which can get very annoying after a while, but then also I don't think the massaging functionality is very strong, although I have been pampered with the SEL R-Line Turbo from Volkswagen with the Tiguan. So for a vehicle coming in at $60,000, this isn't really meeting my expectations. Now also lastly will be your widget layout. So from here you're going to have Google Maps, Google Play Store, Google Assistant, but I think best of all you have YouTube as well. So if you're just sitting around, maybe grabbing a bite to eat or taking a break, you can watch some car reviews while you're relaxing. And then lastly, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory to go along with a top view angle as well, giving you better visibility when you are parking on city streets or maybe even when you are parking on the trails. Now, you are going to have that trail cam, the front-facing camera, but it's only activated when you're in off-road mode, which I think is a huge miss. I would like to see that when I do place the Explorer in drive. So I'd like to see that in a future model year. Now beneath that, you are going to find a single row of buttons for your auto start stop, your park assist features, your hazards, camera systems, traction control on and off, auto vehicle hold, and a physical dial for the volume. Beneath that, you are going to find a USB-C and USB-A outlet to go along with a 12-volt outlet, and yet another storage compartment where you can store some smaller items. For the center console itself, you're going to find a similar layout to all vehicles in the Ford lineup. Your dial for your drive mode selector. Ford is not going to be moving away from that anytime soon. Your electronic parking brake, your drive mode selector, 2 cup holders. Then for the standard storage compartment, enough room for, I'd say, maybe a couple 17-ounce water bottles. I like seeing that type of practicality up front. And to round out the front seating area, above will be a panoramic moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. And why don't we go over what this vehicle offers with the Ultimate package? Making up the $12,000 difference with this Ultimate package is mostly the V6. There's a lot of minor features that makes up this Ultimate package where you could probably sit there and say, why is this necessary? But there's also a convenience package for the model with a 2.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which would definitely be worth considering if you are looking at buying this model. So beginning with the convenience with this package, you're going to have Blue Cruise, a 90-day trial, auto-dimming rear view mirrors, and then rain-sensing front wipers. Alongside this package, you will have the 14-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, which does include a subwoofer. For the exterior upgrades, mostly it's for the side mirrors, because you're going to have the auto fold functionality to go along with heated glass. So they're heated, so when you do take this vehicle out during the winter, those won't be icing up. LED turn signal indicators, security approach lamps, which is nice to see, driver side auto dimming, driver and passenger memory settings, love to see that, and gloss black side mirror caps. For the interior, you have the driver seat memory functionality, multi-contour front seats, active motion massage functionality, which as you've already discovered, I don't think is really necessary. Then for the third row, they power fold, which again is great to see. And lastly, again with the exterior is going to be that panoramic moonroof. For $12,000, is it worth it? For $12,000 to get over $60,000, is this going to be the ultimate SUV for the off-road capability? That's up for you guys to decide. But I like what this vehicle is offering here in terms of its flexibility, and I think its multidimensional aspects that makes it a really cool offering right now in this segment. Now for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 37.5 inches of legroom. Not going to be class leading, but it's enough space where I don't think people of all shapes and sizes are going to be feeling claustrophobic. Best of all, with this Tremor, we have captain chairs, giving us the ability to move these seats forwards and backwards on rails to give us the maximum amount of comfort and interior space. Also, these seats do recline a bit by about 5 to 10 degrees, so that way you can just sit back here, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. This will not be included for the third row, but the second row seats still get the suede inserts, giving you a good amount of grip so when your driver is on a winding back road, you're not swinging around too much in these seats, which is really nice. Now, in terms of amenities, they are going to receive heated outboard seats to go along with their own climate control, so they can be nice and cool or warm depending on the time of year. And again, it just gives you that luxury aspect to the small that I think a lot of people are looking for right now at this particular price point. You're also going to find 2 USB-C inputs to go along with a 3-pronged outlet. And also found for the center console is going to be 2 cup holders. So if you're going to be on those road trips, you stop at a McDonald's or Burger King, they can have their drinks back here and they can be nice and relaxed on those longer road trips. And finally, for passengers in the third row, I think the Explorer offers a respectable amount of interior space because you're looking at right on 32 inches of legroom. Now that is not going to be class leading, but it's far from being the worst in this segment. So you can have smaller kids in the third row, maybe even have some smaller adults. With the higher roofline, tall passengers will not be hitting their head on the headliner, so a good amount of flexibility here out of the Explorer, good amount of utility. On top of this, with the Tremor trim, since we have the captain chairs, those passengers could be courteous and move a bit more forwards, so that way you have a bit more space in the third row. Also back here, you will have cup holders on both sides of the third row seating area, and on top of this, 2 USB-C outlets to charge up your smartphones or tablets. Returning to the rear face to take a look at the cargo area for the 2026 Ford Explorer Tremor. Obviously, with this being a $60,000 SUV, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the third row seats, you're looking at right around 18 cubic feet of room. If you're a longtime visitor to this channel, you know I like seeing over 20 cubic feet just because of the flexibility and the overall practicality. Usually for vehicles of this size, to not have 20 cubic feet is a big miss because if you do have a growing family, you're going to be storing groceries back here. You're going to have travel-on cases. You're going to be going on road trips. Now, I was able to fit all my camera gear today with no issues. That's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. So with that flexibility, I'm pretty happy. Now, I do think that you can store probably 4 or 5 bags of luggage if you are going on that road trip, and obviously a number of bags of groceries here. But best of all, though, with the Tremor, is that the third row seats automatically fold. I love seeing that particular feature, and this is where it gets good, because when the third row seats are folded, you're looking at right on 50 cubic feet of room. That would fall in line with many SUVs in this market. Obviously, there are better out there in terms of the overall size, like the Chevrolet Traverse, for example. Then finally, when you lower the second row seats, you're looking at right on 85 cubic feet of room. Again, not class leading, but I think more than enough space for the average American family. So we have the performance, we have the off-road capability, but what about the driving dynamics? In the modern age of unibody chassis SUVs that are getting off-road credentials with off-road tuned suspension, all-terrain tires, a more rugged appearance, I get kinda leery. Because manufacturers do a pretty good job of making family-friendly SUVs that are comfortable, that give you the performance that you're looking for, and then the off-road capability sacrifices all of that and then some. For the Ford Explorer, though, this is kind of going back to this SUV's roots. It was a body-on-frame SUV in the beginning that was for that adventure, that had the interior space for a growing family. In some ways, with the Tremor trim, this is like the old days. Now, obviously with the twin-turbo V6, this is going to be a huge improvement over the Timberline trim. The Timberline was a bit more lower profile, whereas with the Tremor, you're definitely drawing attention with the accents. However, with the Tremor trim and with this off-road tuned suspension, initially, you're not going to notice much of a difference. You're still going to have the on-road comfort, you're still going to have the performance, you're still going to have more of this stiffness to the overall ride quality that you would find out of an ST. However, though, there is some compensation that's happening, because with the steering input, I would argue it is kind of vague, it's kind of numb. And for someone who has driven the ST, for someone looking for a sportier experience, you might be a bit turned off by the Tremor, especially if you go with the Turbo 4. With the twin-turbo V6, there's still a sense of character and soul to this vehicle that gives you the fun and playful characteristics on the tarmac, and then you got to remember, with the 9 inches of ground clearance, the off-road and suspension, you're also going to have the capability for the off-road purposes, or even during winter road conditions, you can handle them as well. With the all-terrain tires, there's not a lot of noise entering the cabin. I wish I had a sound decibel reader, because that would make things a bit more accurate on my end. We do have active sound cancellations that might be evening everything out here with this vehicle, where I'm not hearing a lot of the outside world. Obviously, there are times at higher speeds with the all-terrain tires where you are going to be noticing some of that noise, but it's not so egregious where you're going to be like, oh, I should have went with the ST, I should have went with the Platinum instead. Now, with the 9 inches of ground clearance, there is some learning curves here before we even get into its maneuverability and handling characteristics. For one, you sit higher up off the ground, so it makes you feel as though you're driving a larger SUV when you're looking out the front windshield. Also, entering and exiting this vehicle is a bit different compared to an Active or ST. That is one thing I was not expecting, because looking at this model from the exterior, it doesn't seem that much different. But with that height increase, you're going to notice it's a bit more difficult entering this model than the other 3 trims. Now, like we also said with the compensation for the handling, especially with the steering input where it's a bit more numb, you're also going to notice that with the higher ground clearance is a bit more, I don't want to say disconnectivity, but you don't feel as well with the chassis as you do with, say, an ST or even an Active. And also, with its handling characteristics, yes, Ford has done a pretty good job of masking the lack of a lower center of gravity and the higher ground clearance. But you're not going to have that maneuverability or nimbleness that you're going to find out of the other trims. But the V6 most certainly helps. On these back roads, it can handle them pretty well, but I'll tell you, what is playing around with my perception of this SUV is just the fact that there's really not a lot of feedback with the steering input. That I'm turning, but I don't feel like the vehicle is doing that simultaneously like you would find out of the ST. And that is one thing that I hope Ford does correct in future model years, that they give us just a bit more playfulness out of this vehicle and a bit more continuity with the overall driving characteristics. Out of the V6, though, there is no lagging out of this vehicle. You're not going to be on throttle all the time waiting for this thing to go. You can easily enter highways, pass slower drivers, and that's what's most important here. That was one thing it didn't have out of the Timberline with that 4-cylinder. I think a lot of you are going to go in the V6 direction, especially right now with the employee pricing. That really changes things up, because you save $5,000 and now you're not spending $60,000. You're now below that threshold, which makes this SUV, in my opinion, far more appealing. Now, when you take a look at the rivals in this class, such as the Honda Pilot, maybe the Hyundai Palisade XRT. With the Explorer, I feel like this is still sports tuned, relatively speaking, to its rivals. Because with the Pilot, it's a large, cumbersome SUV. And with the Trail Sport, with the all-terrain tires, the off-road suspension, I would argue it changes up the driving dynamics rather significantly. to a point where you're like, all right, maybe I should have just gone with a lower trim or a more on-road friendly trim. Now, I haven't experienced the Hyundai Palisade XRT yet, but design-wise, it is a huge departure from the other trims in the lineup, and most likely, if you're looking for a Hyundai Palisade, you want the comfort, you want the luxury aspects. Maybe the off-road tuned suspension is going to be a setback for you. But then also I think about vehicles like Subaru, right? Because Subaru kind of started all this with the Wilderness trim a couple of years ago, and then obviously Ford bringing in the Bronco nameplates once again hasn't exactly slowed this market down. But with Subaru, when you get the Wilderness trim, a Forester or an Outback doesn't drive the same with the Wilderness badge and the Wilderness credentials. With the Ford Explorer Tremor, though, yes, you notice the off-road suspension. Yes, you do notice the all-terrain tires, but it's not like this new experience that you're going to be at the dealership cross-shopping back and forth wondering, well, what should I do here? You know, like, yes, I do go off-road, but I don't need 9 inches of ground clearance. I don't need the off-road suspension. Is this going to be too much for me? And realistically, and practically speaking, I don't think any of the changes that Ford made alters this vehicle in any way, shape, or form. It's just the minor differences that you're going to get used to. It's going to be the minor cosmetic elements, the fact you have the higher ground clearance, and even the suede seats. These are all things you're going to have to get used to. But aside from that, I'm not going to be one of those people that says that this has completely ruined the Explorer experience. In some ways, I would say it has enhanced the Explorer experience, making it more of a traditional Explorer that we had 20, 30 years ago. And one last test here for the agility and performance. Love the sound of that V6. Entering this corner, in the brakes, the braking is nice and strong. Oh yeah, yep, in that corner I felt the disconnectivity there. That's where you know some of the body roll, but Ford did a pretty good job here. They did a pretty good job. It's the fact that it doesn't have that continuity that you would find out of the ST that kind of hurts the small in terms of performance. But it's not major. It's not something I'm going to be harping on or complaining about too much and being unfair to this vehicle. It's just that there's certain expectations out of the Explorer that you know it's kind of a performance SUV, even without the ST badge. And this is just something I need to get used to. Incredible. The fact that you can have a vehicle that is somewhat off-road capable and performance like this makes it a well-rounder. Makes it a really good well-rounder. One last point I do want to make here before we wrap up this test drive and review, because I think some people might find this interesting or really important. With the higher ground clearance, is there a floaty sensation out of this model? And there isn't, thankfully. When you're going over bumps and imperfections, it's not like you're, riding over them. The suspension can absorb it pretty well. And thankfully, it's not so rugged or so off-road tuned where it's unbearable to drive on a daily basis. But there is that difference. And the lack of connectivity for me is mostly with its handling capabilities. Its on-road handling capabilities. And that's why I would say that if you're looking for a point A to point B vehicle, you're not looking for performance. The Turbo 4 would be the way to go, not only financially, coming in at $50,000, but also I think it maybe meets your expectations. With the twin-turbo V6, this is a situation where I think Ford is trying to push the envelope just a bit more to one-up their rivals, to meet the expectations, or maybe to meet the demands of buyers looking at purchasing a Honda Pilot with the V6. But because of that, I think Ford got ahead of themselves. This is still a great product. It's a great SUV. But the platform itself, the suspension, was not engineered and designed with an off-road SUV in mind. That yes, this vehicle is capable. Yes, it is rugged. It's not soft like a lot of unibody chassis SUVs out there, even if you go with an active ST or Platinum. But something like this, I would argue, is audacious from Ford. But audacity has worked for Ford in the past. With the Ford Ranger Raptor, with the F-150 Raptor, with the Ford Bronco and Ford Bronco Sport. Audacious got them to where they are right now, to be very competitive with Jeep. And because the Explorer with the Tremor trim is more on-road friendly, this is one of those vehicles that will appease buyers who rarely go off-road, but want that capability, wants the all-terrain tires, wants the ability to take on snow-covered roadways, to take on dirt roads. We have plenty of those up here in New England when you get to Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And also, of course, we have harsh winters, and this vehicle can definitely get you through all of that. It's just, for me, it's what we're sacrificing that I'm having difficulty getting past. But for this vehicle as a whole, one of the more exciting off-road worthy SUVs in this class. And I also think that with the V6, you have that performance that can put a smile on your face, which you're not going to find out of a Chevrolet Traverse Z71. So if you're someone who is adventurous, you're more well-rounded, you live an outdoor lifestyle, but you also have to go to work, drop off the kids at school, this is going to be a vehicle that balances all of that. It's just that compared to, say, an ST or a Platinum, you're making some concessions, you're making some sacrifices. But is those sacrifices worth it? Might be.